By the spring of 1946, Redmont's rail yard had become the region's main artery for freight. Grain from the mill, cargo in, cargo out, goods moving through on a schedule the whole area had come to depend on. Then, in May, that schedule stopped. A national rail strike, the largest the country had seen, brought freight traffic to a standstill from coast to coast. Redmont wasn't a town built on one industry, but the yard was still how the region moved its goods, and without it, that flow simply had nowhere to go. Grain piled up at the mill with no cars to carry it. Sidings filled with idle rolling stock. Businesses that relied on shipments in or out found themselves waiting, with no clear end in sight. For nearly 3 weeks, the region felt what it meant to lose its main freight link. When service finally resumed, the yard came back to life almost overnight. But the strike left a lesson behind. Even a diversified town could grind to a halt when the tracks that connected it to everywhere else went silent.
Hello, and welcome back to Redmont. Before I get started with this week's episode, I just wanted to discuss a few changes moving forward with the Redmont series. I'm not sure how closely anybody's been paying attention to the historical documentary that comes at the beginning of this episode, but if you were paying attention, the title card at the very beginning has a production date on it. And that production date is 1950. Which creates a bit of a problem for me because Redmont obviously continues forward all the way to the present day, which means there's 76 years of missing history here. And I've been debating for some time now exactly how to proceed past the point of 1950. At this point, I feel I've pretty much fleshed out the early history of Redmont, but it's time to be moving forward. And I think moving forward, the history is going to take more of a backseat as I move into more modern times. What I've been finding is the historical documentation, as fun as it is, eventually becomes a bit burdensome to the series, especially as you move closer to the present time. City Skylines is not a historical simulator, it is a city builder, and there's more and more issues that develop. So I thought perhaps it's time to put the history in the backseat, still have a few historical moments as needed, but proceed forward more in the vein of a traditional city builder from this point forward. There's still going to be bits of history, it's just not going to be at the beginning of every episode, only when it seems appropriate and needed to kind of flesh out why certain things are being built in Redmont. And with that, let's get on with the episode. The first thing I'm going to be working on for today's episode is we're going to be expanding the highway system just a little bit. I'm trying to imagine the highway systems evolving over time, not being built out in one, like building out massive interchanges all in one go. And right here, I'm going to connect these two highways with exit ramps, so you can get from one to the other a little more conveniently. I do have this roundabout here, which does, in kind of a obviously roundabout way, connect the two, but I think it's time for a little more, like a more direct connection here. I'm only going to be adding one ramp for the time being. As the city grows and traffic increases, I'll come back and revisit this and see if it requires more road infrastructure. But for the moment, I think this is more than sufficient. For this week's episode, I'm going to be building out and detailing this industrial park on the far side of the river. And the first thing I have to think about is this paper plant here. This has to go. The style of this just does not fit the rest of the region at all. If I was building something like an older city on the East Coast, maybe, but not out here in the West, it just doesn't make any sense. And I have a few extra fire stations here that I was just playing around with, so I'm going to get rid of those and update this road to a proper highway. At this time, I'm just going to be creating an at-grade intersection here. I don't think there's enough highway traffic here to really warrant a proper interchange, but of course, as the city develops, I'll come back and revisit this as needed. The road connections here are a real mess, so I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, make it make a little more sense. Now, right down here, I did have a rail cargo depot. It was not functioning correctly. It was causing some issues, so I deleted it, and now I'm just going to replace it with a new one. I found this one on the mod store. I really like it. It has this very clever sorting system for all the trucks coming in, so I don't get huge backlogs of trucks clogging up all the roads around here trying to get into the depot. It sorts it all out and spits them all out on one side. I like it quite a bit. I do have to come back in here and redraw in some of the roads that they weren't connecting properly. It's not perfect. There are some road connection issues here, but I do like how it sorts all the traffic. It certainly stops traffic issues from developing around the depot, which is always a big issue. Every time I built one of these, there's always trucks lining up and huge traffic problems. This does a very nice job of sorting out that mess. And now I just have to redraw the rail lines here to connect everything up. Right here, I'm trying to draw in a rail yard, and honestly, I'm not doing a very good job of it. I come back and redo this a few times. Eventually, I do get it to a state where I do like it, but this isn't the final version of it here. As we move farther into the 20th century, shipping cargo by train gets superseded by shipping it by truck. So I'm going to be adding several logistics hubs here, and those trucks will distribute goods to the greater Redmont area. I have noticed since the latest patch that several of the surfaces and surface decals have been corrupted, so I have to come in here and delete those out. I just have to reconnect our frontage road here so we can have access to it. One thing I've been struggling with from the very beginning of this series is how to make the rail lines and the rail tracks look good. The vanilla surfaces for the tracks are just atrociously bad. Right here, I'm trying out a few different surfaces and a few ideas, just trying to figure out a way to blend the two things together. At the end of the episode, I figure out a better solution than this, but you're going to see me play with this throughout the entire episode. I don't like anything I'm doing down here. None of it ever looks really quite good. And I'll be honest, by the end of the episode, I have a solution that is better, but it's still not ideal, but I'll live with it for the moment. The biggest problem with the rail tracks is the hard edge here. It's impossible to disguise this and make it look good. Also, we can see some of the surfaces are being corrupted here. That large pebble surface, that's one of those corrupted surfaces I was talking about. My water treatment for the city has been somewhat inadequate for quite some time now, and this industrial park seems like the perfect location to add a water processing plant. I'm just going to go with the vanilla one here. Now we do have the new paintable surfaces that came out with the last patch, and as I said in the last episode, they don't really work all that well with my custom map surface. So I still have to use surfaces and decals here to blend everything together. And if you're trying to go for a more custom look for your cities, these are still extremely useful. I'm really quite excited to see what the modding community can do with paintable surfaces. I don't know what is possible yet. We haven't seen anything yet, but who knows? Maybe over the next few months, we might start seeing some clever modders figure out other uses for these things. It took me some time to try to figure out what this industrial park would look like. For this part of the United States, we're not in a major manufacturing hub, so there shouldn't be a lot of heavy manufacturing. Most of the industry here is all about resource extraction, and I want the industries that I build to reflect that. I'm going to be adding another cement factory. Not so much that I need another cement factory, but the piles of raw materials that surround it seems appropriate for what this region would be about. Of course, these assets, these industrial assets, the vanilla ones, are always way too pristine. Industry is dirty, and to make it look good, we have to make it look a little dirtier than what the game gives us. We are extremely lucky to have so many modders that have created custom surfaces and decals for our use in-game. One of the biggest problems with these is every modder has made them to their own standards, and what you find after a while is mixing and matching them. They don't necessarily work well together. They don't blend very well together. If we're, say, dealing with surfaces from, say, Gaga XM, he's designed all his surfaces to interact with one another, but those surfaces don't necessarily interact with, say, surfaces created by Sully. And it takes a bit of trial and error to see which ones work together, which ones don't. That's what I'm doing down here. I'm creating these custom piles of material here, and I'm trying to find a surface that I can paint on top of them that actually gives them a little bit of definition, a little bit of character, and still blend together well enough. This is a bit of a trial and error. I think the solution I came up with here is not too bad. What I've been finding is the transparent surfaces tend to work better together than the solid ones. A lot of times the solid ones, you can't paint other surfaces on top of them. They just won't blend together. Like right here, I'm painting down the oil industry surface, which I love. I think it works as a good default sandy surface. Unfortunately, none of the transparent surfaces will paint on top of it, so I have to use decals on top of this one. But like on this pile down here, I was able to put a stain surface. And right here, I'm using the paintable surface. This is the lush green at I think about 30, what am I got? 30% opacity here. And this just adds a little bit of darkness, and I can paint it exactly where I want it using the contour lines here. And it's really subtle, but it does add a little bit of shading. This is why I'm kind of excited to see what the modders can do with the paintable surfaces, because we can use them in a way that the game hasn't really thought about. Nobody's really just tackled it yet, but I am kind of excited to see what people come up with. Now I'm probably using more trees and shrubs than what's absolutely necessary for an industrial area. A lot of the times what I'm doing here is I'm using the trees and shrubs as kind of like as a bit of a border. Fences don't really show up from, far above, like from a height or altitude, but the trees and shrubs do. So this is a nice framing device to kind of like frame in this one large lot here to make it look like it's all part of the same industry. I'm also going to be spending a bit of time here adding a bit of detail around the water treatment plant just to kind of connect it a little better to the surrounding landscapes. One thing I find missing from water treatment is they don't really have like a settling pond, which is a fairly common feature. I mean, we have these kind of separation tanks here on the side, but a lot of times there's also just like pools of water where things are just allowed to settle out. So that's what I'm going to be building down here. I'm going to be using a pedestrian path to draw out the outline for it. I'm going to use Move It to raise the entire path up a few meters, I think about 3. As you can see here, I have a little bit of a glitch that I need to sort out. I don't really want to see the actual pedestrian path, so I'm going to use a net lane to disguise it. I'm also going to be using some gravel surfaces to draw in the sides of the settling pond. and a water surface to draw in the actual water. At the time I'm recording this, I thought I had the other colors of water, but I only have the blue, so I'll have to use the blue for the time being. A muddy color would maybe be a bit more appropriate here. We also have this new amazing mod here that allows us to finally be able to draw in the grass sprites that came with the base game. They weren't enabled because they covered every single surface, but now we have a mod where we could just draw them in like a paintable surface and put them exactly where we want them. I have to experiment with this a little bit more, but it already combines very nicely with the ground decals here. I'm certainly going to have a lot of fun playing around with this, find out where it works, where it doesn't work. Also, this is another thing the modding community probably could take a look at and figure out combinations of things that actually blend really well together. I think we can make some really amazing looking, realistic looking things with this. I'm just going to remove some of the excessive props and surfaces around the water treatment plant. One trick I've already figured out with the grass sprites is don't paint them too close to the roads. They look better if they're recessed a little ways away. When you see them too close up, like if you're doing street views from like road level and they're too close to the road, they don't really look all that good. So if you just make sure they have a bit of a setback from the road, they will look a lot better. I was looking at some real-world examples of industrial sites from this area of the world. The map location here is very close to Grand Junction, Colorado, so I was looking at Grand Junction. It is a smaller town, but it does have a substantial amount of industry around it, so that was a good reference. I was also using Salt Lake City, a larger urban center, more similar to what we're building here in Redmont, just to get an idea for the industry. One thing I noticed is the industry in this part of the United States really does sprawl out over considerable space. Property values here are probably very inexpensive. There's no density to the industry. It takes up like acres and acres and acres of space. So what I'm doing here to try to achieve that look is just expand the lot sizes around the actual industrial buildings, make it much larger than it actually is in game. There are some limitations to this. I don't have a lot of space, so I do have to be kind of thinking about restraining things a little bit. But I also, at the same time, want to just expand this lot sizes. Also, fill in some of the area with empty lots, sites that haven't been developed or are not being underutilized. I guess maybe a good way to think about it. And imagine that at some point, some of these lots might have been cleared off with the anticipation of some industries being built, but then later just grow back in with bushes and trees and weeds and stuff because no industry actually came to take up the space. I also want to remove most of the industries with smokestacks. Smokestacks kind of indicate like manufacturing industries, which kind of established they're not really part of this region. It's really resource extraction and processing, and it's those resources that are shipped off to other manufacturing hubs across the country. Another thing that's often overlooked are commercial businesses located in industrial areas. There are commercial businesses that cater to industrial customers, so it makes sense that they are located next to and near the industries that they are servicing. was trying to figure out a way to make this large paved area in front of the cargo depot here a little more interesting. For really large paved surfaces like this, they do need more detail. Remember, you're going to be looking at your city mostly from the top down, so you're going to be looking at this quite a lot. And if you just have this flat expanse of the one flat surface, it's not going to look good. So you need to add a bit of variation to it in order to kind of break it up, so make it just look a little more visually interesting. Now I'm trying a few different things here. I'm not really happy with any of the solutions I'm coming up with so far. I finally settled on this one here. These are net lanes made by Mike Builds. You can find him here on YouTube under Mike Builds. He makes probably some of the best net lane covers for roads and paths and rail lines and all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, he doesn't post any of his stuff to the mod store. You can find it through his, if you go to his YouTube channel, he does have links to his stuff. I'm also going to be using a few static ploppable prop buildings here to expand some of these industrial yards. Just having flat empty spaces can get a little visually boring, so adding a few extra buildings, these are non-functional, but they just add a bit more character, make the lots look a little more visually unique from each other. I'm just going to do a bit of landscape detailing around the industrial site just to finish it off a little bit, frame it a bit with the natural landscapes that surround it. I'm using decals here to kind of blend in, add a bit of interest to this hillside here. You can see that the decals, once again, they don't really conform to uneven terrain, so I do have a bit of this weird banding thing, pattern kind of happening here. I'm finding the grass sprites kind of hide it a little bit from certain angles, but I can also come in here with some shrubs and trees just to kind of like hide some of these unrealistic edges. I'm also going to be adding just a few small offices dotted around the area as well. These offices are probably related to the industries located here, so it also makes sense that they are next to them. Okay, for the rail surface here, what I'm going to go with is, once again, I'm going to go rely on Mike Builds here. He's come up with probably one of the best net lane covers for rail lines I've seen so far. We do have to do a little bit of editing here. I need a narrower track. I'm using Road Builder to just delete off the shoulders of the track, make them smaller. And I'm just going to use the network tools here to snap the net lanes directly on top of the rail lines here, and we can see them here. I think these probably look the best of anything I've used so far. They're not exactly perfect for what I'm building here, but they will do. You see how they blend nicely with the edge? There's no hard edges anymore. Love it. And I'm going to spend a bit of time here just kind of blending them in with the rest of the rail yard. I'm going to combine this with some gravel surfaces and some stainage here to try to just blend it a little bit better. I think I need to work on this a little bit more, but I'm liking the overall look so far. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. I'm just going to be finishing off the rail yard here by adding a few trains. At this point of the series, we've covered the first 100 years of development for Redmont, and we've got another 75 years to go. Historical segments will pop up as needed, but they're not going to be the main focus moving forward. All that's left for this episode is to bring our documentary to its final conclusion. And even though the historical segment is concluding, Redmont is still here, and Redmont is still going to continue. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode. Everybody take care, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Redmont is a young town. It has known hardship, and it has known ambition. And in the balance between the two, it has endured. The men who cut these roads, who raised these mills, who brought the rail through stone that did not wish to yield, they did not build for themselves alone. They built for the town that would come after them. And that town is rising now. New homes, new industry, a new highway reaching west, carrying Redmont toward a country busy remaking itself. We cannot say what the coming years will bring to this valley. No one can. But we have seen enough in the making of this record to venture a guess. Redmont's finest chapters are yet to come.